Alright, we're live. I think, possibly, maybe. Yep, I think we are good for going live. Alright, welcome in, everyone. Hope you all doing good. Yeah. So, welcome in, everyone. Welcome to this little chat show. We're talking about chicken treats today. So, expect like a 1-ish hour stream. And if you want to come up and talk about chickens, here is your link to do so. So, what are we going to be talking about today? We're going to be talking about treats and feed. Mainly, we're going to cover treats, but then we're going to cover feed, maybe touch a little bit on water. But I really want to focus in on feed today. What's going on, MT Homestead? I really want to focus in on talking about chicken feed today, mainly because, well, yeah, the chicken feed and chicken treats are all really important to the chicken. The chicken's lifestyle matters because the chickens want the greatest possible lifestyle. So in this video, not this video, treating this like a YouTube video. I just dropped a video. I'm sorry. I'm talking about, of course, like in this live, we're gonna be talking and chatting about all the possibilities of giving your chickens treats. What are the best ones? Going on, Old Man King Homestead. What's going on, everyone? Hope y'all are having a fantastic evening, everyone. Yeah, I know I'm not doing too bad myself, although I do have some testing tomorrow, so that's going to diminish my likelihood of posting a video or doing trivia Tuesday tomorrow. So I just figured I'd give you a heads up because, well, testing tomorrow and the possibility of me failing it and stuff. I'm crossing my fingers I'm prepared for it. But other than that, though, besides the point, we're talking about chicken treats. So, what are the best chicken treats? What is your personal favorite chicken treat? So I want to start off with a little bit of a discussion. So what is your favorite chicken treat? If you own chickens, what is that one treat that you want to give to your chickens? If you don't own chickens, maybe you can do a little bit of insight into this and see what is your personal favorite chicken treat? What's going on, Mike? What's going on, everyone, that I missed? Which is no one, because I get all the messages. I read them all. I highlight them all up on the panel. So yeah. If you guys didn't already hear, we had some mystery of disappearing eggs earlier today, and the eggs are disappearing without, like, the eggs. We don't want the chickens taking the eggs, but they're taking them and they're hiding them somewhere. I would suppose probably somewhere in one of those bushes that are in and around the chicken yard. So, my best guess is probably in the tree somewhere, because that's where the chickens love. They're hiding their stuff. So, what is your personal favorite chicken treat? That is our discussion question right now. Be sure to comment in the chat. If you don't have chickens, what maybe you could like research it a little bit, as I just said. That one chicken treat that you would always feed your chicken or always include in the basket. Now, typically that would be mealworms for me, but goldfish are just on another level for me personally, because the goldfish, the chickens love the goldfish and it helps them a lot. What's going on, pescatarian gardening? Yeah, mealworms. Mealworms are the way to go for the chickens, because around this time of year the actual population of worms is decreasing significantly. As I believe we have a frost advisory for tonight. Is we are going to be dipping into the low 30s tonight, with the likelihood of some frost going around the board. What's going on, Mr. MT Homestead? Going on? It has to be the dried worms. The dried worms are definitely the way to go, because the chickens love the dried worms, and just about all the chickens love those dried worms. So it looks like tonight it's going to be around 34 degrees. If you want to know what the weather for your current location is, just type !weather and then followed by your zip code. So I'll put the example while I'm talking about chicken treats. So yeah, mealworms, goldfish, lettuce, they all love that sort of stuff. The chickens, even the ducks love that sort of stuff. Yeah. Yeah, the chickens love cabbage. Yeah, the mealworms are mainly the ones. So 41 degrees right now. That's pretty chilly if I don't say so myself. But other than that, though, yeah, the chickens love their mealworms. They love a lot of kitchen scraps like tomatoes, any gardening things I didn't get completed that weren't ever. Yeah, the chickens love soldier worms and starch. Yep, the chickens love a lot of things that come out of the garden. So yeah, chickens are loving a lot of things that come out of that garden, man. Let me tell you, they will eat just about anything. Because if you didn't already know, I'm pretty sure you guys know this, but if you didn't know, if like you like collapse and die in your chicken yard, there's a really good chance that eventually the chickens will likely resort to consuming the dead body, because chickens are just like that. So, quick little chicken fun fact, because everyone knows that, but it's still a pretty funny chicken fun fact. I gave him the leftovers something. Yeah, yours gives the leftovers. Yeah, the proteins are the ones that help build strong chickens. Those are the ones that will build the best possible chicken for you. Now currently, our chickens have daily treats. And the treats typically consist of stuff like meal. It's mainly consisting of stuff like like the fibers and all that whatnot, like lettuce and fiber, mainly that sort of stuff. Goldfish, a little bit of mealworms. I'm thinking about doing a day in the life soon, where I like show off this sort of stuff. But for now, no day in the life. I'll probably do that before the end of the month, though. I just figured I'd give you all a heads up. Yeah, they are little velociraptors. They're descendants of T-Rexes, and they definitely did not forget that they were the descendants of the T-Rex. So, next discussion question. What is a chicken treat that you would never feed? What is it food? What is some food that you would never feed to your chickens? So what is that one food? Hang on, I'm just typing it out. Obviously, you go poisonous plants, but some kitchen scraps just really not good for them. Yeah, I would say that like some of the kitchen scraps, some of the poisonous flowers that live just outside of the chicken yard are typically the ones that I would say are the ones that I wouldn't want to give to the chickens personally, because those chickens, if they had that, they would likely end up either being in the hospital bed or unfortunately be along with Sprinkles and Gray Cloud and all those other chickens up in the heavens. So yeah, it looks like grits are typically something you don't really want. You wouldn't really feed to your chickens, for you personally. If we're talking about non-poisonous things we'd never feed to the chickens, see, I would say chicken, but then again, it would be kind of funny, but at the same time, not really. I probably wouldn't feed them chicken unless I really had to. So chicken, probably like I won't ever let them get to my bacon again. If I hear them clucking and I'm holding bacon in my hands, I'm never bringing that in the coop. I'm just dropping it on the counter and running out there. I'm never letting those chickens touch my bacon again, man. That was the biggest mistake of my life. Guys, Chicken Burger, I guess Chicken Burger wanted to know that sort of stuff. Yeah. I think what you should do is you should do !weather. Weather followed by the zip code. That's the weather. So it's like right there. This is an example. So yeah, just figured I'd point that out. The weather command is simple as that. And also you could use other commands like 92 will drop your channel link. So yeah, I just figured I'd say that. So yeah. So we just discussed a little bit about chicken treats and chicken feed. So what would you want your chicken treat box in the morning to consist of? If you're giving them treats every morning, what do you want it to consist of? For me personally, some lettuce, some goldfish, some tomatoes and other kitchen scraps, some things I can find in the refrigerator that are veggies that are not poisonous. Yeah, they will eat KFC. They won't even notice it, to be honest. Like, literally, you could probably like butcher a chicken in front of another chicken, then feed it the cooked chicken, cook it right in front of them, and they would probably still have it. And they probably wouldn't even notice a thing because they're chickens. They will take anything for food, to be completely honest with you. So yeah, they do not forget that they are like T-Rexes and Velociraptors and all those little dinosaurs that chickens are. So yeah. So I like to typically have my chicken treat box in the morning consisting of that sort of stuff. So like, the treats, maybe a little bit of mealworms if we have them. I haven't seen them in the stores recently around here. Yeah, some fruit would definitely help a little bit, like an apple. Sometimes when I pack my lunch, sometimes I won't have like fruit or something. I will bring a fruit and like end up not having it. So like I'd like feed that to the chickens and all that whatnot. That would be what I would end up doing. Yeah, the Subway sandwiches. Chickens love sandwiches. So yeah. Subway sandwiches. Yeah. Chickens would probably take that. They would probably take just there could be a chicken sandwich that was offered at Subway, and they would probably still take it. As I said from before, chickens will eat chicken, and they will show zero remorse. So, in that morning, man, in the morning when it's the weekend, I bring the chickens their treats. When it's the weekday, they're not out at 5 in the morning. So, I just like set up their waters and feed before I go. So yeah. Yeah, Nightbot commands are really hard to use. I should start like adding more commands to it. I have like 3 commands. So yeah, 92 will drop said channel link. Also, I don't know if you guys heard. I just figured I'd announce it really quickly before we move on that I'm doing that chicken pumpkin carving challenge, and submissions open up tomorrow. So just yeah, and you could be featured in the compilation, get a shout out and to your channel, and have a portion of the video featured to you. I just figured I'd say that. Either way, though. Back to what is consisting in the chicken treat box. That chicken treat box in the morning can have a lot of things in it. But for me, the lettuce, the tomato, the fruits like an apple or orange or something like that. Sometimes even leftovers from dinner if it's like pizza and like no one touched that, and like a pizza fell on the floor. I'd definitely feed them that slice of pizza and all, because well, they're just like that. They can have that sort of stuff. It's like really good, has like all the good nutrients in it for the chickens at least. And goldfish, of course. Goldfish is another thing I'd feed to those chickens, because the chickens would literally take that goldfish any day of the week. And then there's probably mealworms. If I said I haven't seen them in the store for some reason. Yeah, they love tomatoes, apples, cantaloupe. I'll tell you what. In the summer, when like Walmart and Stop and Shop are carrying the watermelon, if like when we cut that stuff up, get it ready, and like feed them the outskirts of that sort of stuff, they will literally devour those watermelon, because chickens love their watermelon, and you got to trust me with that one. If you haven't already fed your chickens some watermelon, maybe go down to the store next spring or whatever your stores begin carrying watermelon, and then maybe cut some portions off of it, give it to your chickens. If you have to go outside and you have a piece of watermelon, you actually accidentally drop it, those chickens, there'll be nothing left of that watermelon. So yeah, the watermelon is definitely one of, if not the best things for my chickens. And of course, garden remnants. But of course, we have to be careful with those garden remnants, because they don't really want to have stuff like tomato plants and like pepper plants and stuff like that. They want to have like remains. It'll help get the soils fertilized for the next year. So yeah, the chickens are just like that. Besides the point, though, they're really good in the garden, and the feed can help like produce for the next season, and they can. And as I said from last year, I don't know if you guys heard about those rogue tomatoes. Back in the fall of 21, when the garden was dying, I fed them some tomatoes, and eventually that created a little bit of fertilizer for the tomatoes, and a couple tomatoes popped up out of nowhere. And they stayed there until we dug out the pool, and then they had to go. Yeah, the chickens love pumpkins. Yep, they will take it out. They don't really like to eat the outside of the pumpkins. Like what I do is like I would like start to like build something on it, and then like carve a little bit out of it, and then let the chickens get into the rest of it, because they like the pumpkin guts and all that whatnot. You found mine, love the lemon bulb. All right, and then the grasshoppers from the garden. Yeah, the chicken grasshoppers. Oh, I almost clicked the end stream button. That could have been very unfortunate. Yeah, with Halloween coming up, be sure to, the leftover jack-o'-lanterns, as long as you don't burn candles in them. If we don't burn real candles in them, we burn like we don't even burn candles. We just like use plastic ones and put them outside. And as long as like the tree company isn't taking down trees here, we can put up some decorations. But unfortunately, that won't be the case this year, because they're taking down trees all over the state for the winter, of course. If they're saying that this winter is going to be as bad as it's going to be, my chickens are not going to like it, because when I drop that feed in the snow, if it's like still snowing, it can get buried, and the chickens don't want to go outside. It's a miserable mess. So I would typically wait until the snow dies down until I feed the chickens their treats. I don't know if any of you guys experience any winter snow. It's hit or miss here. Yeah, chickens are sick of grasshoppers. They get sick of some things for some reason. Like, they do not like some of the things I give them, and they love other things. Like, they used to love when I hand-fed them their chicken feed when they were like, 17 or 18 weeks old. But then they started despising, and I mean despising, it like recently. They want the treats because they're getting older now. Those chickens are turning 4 this spring, so it's looking. So their days are starting. So their clock is starting to count down, unfortunately. And with that coming up, they want to live out the rest of their days, and they want to have the best possible treats, which I can respect. But at the end of the day, man, you should still have normal chicken grains, man. Like that'll help make a healthy chicken that'll actually be able to last said lifespan of like 6 to 12 years. They always like to say that the chickens live 6 to 12 years. I personally don't find that to be the case for the most part. Most people say they don't live longer than 4 years. So that's why a diet for the chicken is one of the greatest things you should look into when feeding your chickens. As I said, as this stream is about, everything you need to know on treats and everything you need to know on that sort of stuff will really help you start to figure out what your chickens need the most. Which for me is stuff like grains and fruits and vegetables, and of course just a little bit. And I mean just a little bit of that junk food in there. It's like the pizza, the all that whatnot. The grains, on the other hand, will help the chickens out a lot. You see, if you give those chickens the grains and all that whatnot, they will love you. And all you got to do is just bring it to them consistently. Set up a schedule. Set up like a time that you give it to you. And those chickens start to become habit bound. And that's how you build a strong and healthy relationship with your chickens. So treats will help build that relationship between you and your chicken. And if you consistently give it to them, they will become the friendliest things you'll ever see. If you don't consistently give them those treats, then they may start a rival against you. May or may not. I would recommend giving them treats. And if you're going to use like names to like call them over, like I call the farm flock Chicky Chicks because they expect treats. I give them the treats every time they say Chicky Chicks. That's how I train them to that sort of stuff, which is why treats can help a little bit with like training the chickens to do cool moves and all that whatnot. If you want to like train your chickens to do some moves, you should use some treats. The treats are what the reward should be. Now in the summer, what we will sometimes do is we'll like put a blueberry in water and freeze it, make a little icy blueberry for the chickens, and those things are like their favorites when it's like 95 degrees and sweltering, like 103% humidity. All right, no, it's not that extreme, but like they love it as long as it's above like 85 degrees, which they only had it back in April. I'm not even joking. We got to like 96 last April. But other than that, though, that was like the only time they were ever able to have it because it got above 90 once this summer. They got above 90 twice in April. Got above 90 once in September. So those are the times that we give them their little watermelon, their blueberries. That's when the store is carrying all this sort of stuff. So typically, if the chickens are begging for something like that, I have to make sure it's at the store before I give it to them. Especially if it's like really expensive. What are dangerous plants for? Yeah, some of the flowering plants, like tiger lilies, was one of them. They grew all around the chicken yard back in 2020, and they are not good. You don't want to feed them to your chickens. So I had to monitor them. I had to make sure. I had to rip them out and like stow them away in like a really, really far location. You see, calla lilies and tiger lilies are beautiful plants. It's just not for the chickens. What's going on, David Coy with Crop? Welcome into the stream, everyone. Hopefully everyone is doing good tonight. And yeah, we're doing the stream as I already said, and you could probably already guess. We're doing everything you need to know with chicken treats. Now, speaking of chicken treats, there's a lot of brands out there that'll offer you like mixed things, and they'll offer you some things like mixed treats, and those are really helpful. I actually got an offer for a sponsorship from a company that wants to do that sort of like business and stuff. I'm probably gonna do it actually, but that'll come a little while later. But other than that, man, companies will offer chicken feed companies will often offer that sort of stuff for you, and as long as they're trusted and all that whatnot, don't be afraid to give them. Don't be afraid to experiment. Your chickens will love new things when they see them. Because trust me, those chickens are just like because my chickens love trying new things. It's that way they know if it's worth their time or not. That's at least how the chickens determine how their mood for the day is how good their treats were in the morning. Because you get two types of chickens when you're talking about chicken treats. You get the ones that are thankful, they'll thank you, they'll eat it, they'll suck it up, and they don't really care what you give them as long as you're giving them edible and good food. And then there's the chickens that will complain if you slightly switch over their feed. Those are the ones that could really get on your nerves, because you have to keep buying the perfect chicken feed. And that could be like a $70 chicken feed mixture. Yeah, there's a lot of people out there that'll be offering like mixtures and stuff like that. Those are some of the greatest things for some of the chickens out there. My chickens, personally, we use like mixes, like I'll sometimes, like when we used to have the ducks, I'll like combine the chicken and duck feed, because the chickens and ducks both love the same type of feed, and it was a little mixture I made personally, and those chickens loved it. Unfortunately, we introduced that around the same time that Captain Blackwing and what the ducks started passing away, and then yeah, now we don't have any ducks over here because of some incidents that happened earlier this year, which that should be saved for another video. That should be saved for another video in a future video. What's going on, Sweet Thumb? Welcome into the chat. That's actually, I don't think I've ever seen you on any of my videos before, so I just want to say welcome in. We have a new viewer on here. Welcome in, everyone. Welcome in anyone that's new here. Always welcome in this community. You're always accepted. You know, that sort of stuff. Anyways, though, after giving those welcomings, we get right back into the stream and hopefully attempt to make your day better. So everything you need to know on those chicken treats are just something that... Now, what are some more things we should know about the chicken treats? Other than mixtures, like the things you give to your chickens in the morning are technically mixtures. Like, you mix in all this, like, treats and all that whatnot, and the chickens is in an easy way to make the chickens enjoy their treats the most in the morning. The easiest way is to spread it around the yard sporadically. That'll like allow for, like, if you spread it in one area and there's chickens in the box, they won't really notice it immediately. Like, they'll be like, what? They'll be hearing all the chickens being happy out there, they'll be like, what? And then they'd be late to the party. So that's why some chickens love taking breaks from the nesting box, which is why I like to spread it sporadically across the yard, which will hopefully allow for all this sort of stuff to play out as planned. And the greens, that's another thing they love. The grass. A lot of people just assume that chickens only eat grass. That is not true. They'll sometimes only dig up the grass to find bugs underneath it, and when the ground is frozen up here in the winter, they don't really like that much. Like, yeah, the ground is frozen and all, but, like, they seriously don't want it to be, like, that in the winter. They want the bugs year-round. So, if the bugs here were able to withstand the winter, my chickens would be miles happier in the winter. I don't know if anyone else notices this, but in the winter, my chickens have darker feathers, which is something that most chickens experience in the winter, but some of my chickens, I'm talking about Summer, and used to be Gray Cloud, but then she passed away this summer. I don't know if you guys notice this, but their comb retracts a little bit. Like, their comb gets smaller. Their wattle doesn't decrease or increase in size, but, like, their face becomes colorless. Typically, if their face is colorful, like a dark red, that typically means they're laying eggs. If it's, like, not, then they're, like, not actively laying. If they eat anything from the garden that's green, I would recommend monitoring them in the garden, because there are some garden plants that they can't really eat. But other than that, most of the things in the garden they will eat. And they will have a fun time in that garden. We ripped everything out. And, like, when we do the broccoli here, we do it in 2 seasons up here. Fortunately, we've only ever done 1. But what you do is, like, you have that broccoli. It grows until about, August, late July, more like mid-July. You take them out of the garden, then you start a new set for the fall harvest. And, like, what we'll do is we'll take those broccoli plants and we'll throw them in the chicken yard. And before the end of the hour, there is nothing but just a stem left. That is how quickly the chickens will consume all the broccoli and all that whatnot. The chickens love that sort of stuff. The chickens will love you for giving them some of the greatest treats. So, garden scraps, anything, like, I don't know if you guys remember back in August, I did, like, a couple of videos where I went out to garden harvest and stuff, and, like, I took, like, the plants that weren't really going to be able to harvest, like, the tomatoes I found on the ground that were, like, fully colored, but they were starting to develop dents in them, and I'd gather them up and throw them in the chicken yard, and they would be gone pretty quickly. when I dig up my yard, my chickens are right there, hoping they find a worm. Yeah, chickens are always hoping they find a worm, so that's why in the winter, mealworms are higher demand. And because over here, winter seems to want to set in a little bit earlier. And that is why people are buying the mealworms a little bit earlier. You can place the chickens in the area you want planting. Specifically, we did that in the spring. It wasn't the greatest idea to go in there without a solid plan. Like, we just set up the yard outside. That'd be their base yard. And they had complete access to the garden, which the garden has massive holes for the fence. And the chickens were easily able to get out. They got into the strawberry patch. They killed some of the strawberry. They did a little collaboration, if you will, with the deer. And they tore out those strawberries. And they kept getting out. I thought Summer died that one night, but she was fine. She survived a night out on the rhododendron bush. And there was a lot of chickens that did that throughout the month of April. So by the time we were finally ready to start getting things in the garden by like mid-May, we moved them out of the area. We cut their axes. We got the fertilizer we need. We had a successful growing season. Chickens really help with that sort of stuff. Yeah, they waiting for that grub out there. They want to find that grub that can be hidden anywhere really in the chicken yard or really anywhere else, which is why they love escaping. My chickens personally love escaping a lot. Well, my pet flock used to, because there was a little glitch they found in the yard that allowed them to get out of the yard and then, like, sort of just rummage through the front yard. They moved down. Loudmouth, I think, was the only one that would actually go pretty far. But then we moved the chickens a couple days ago, last week, I think, to their new area, and the farm flock hasn't really been too fond of that because that's right in the middle of their primary meeting ground, and they're not too fond of that. So they have to shift their location pattern somewhere else because they love that location. Other than that, the pet flock has been doing nice in their new location. For now, though, they haven't escaped. And they're still laying their eggs in the coop, like they should be. Unlike the farm flock. I don't know if you guys saw my most recent post I made under an hour ago, right before I hopped on this live, but, like, I've made a video where I talked about how those chickens were laying eggs elsewhere, and it was a real pain. And I still don't know where those eggs are. I'm still looking for them, so we need to put up those missing egg signs, you know. I don't know, I'm being a little dramatic with that one. But other than that, though, seriously, I don't know why some chickens decide they want to lay their eggs in other areas besides their yard. It genuinely pains me when I see that my chickens are laying, like, very few eggs, and then I realize the sole culprit of that is because they're laying eggs elsewhere, which could put a lot of eggs to waste, especially with the shifting temperatures around this time of year. Like, you could have one day, like, it's supposed to be 75 next Saturday, and then it's going to dip into, like, the 30s and 20s. We could be seeing some snow next in a couple of weeks, so, those chickens, man, they are choosing the wrong times to want to leave their yard, and, yeah, it's because they're looking for the treats. Just because we give them treats once a day, and then sometimes I'll randomly come out there and, like, call them over, give them some treats. Just because I only give it to them, like, 2 times a day, and they want it another time of the day, doesn't mean anything. Like, seriously, those chickens can be the pickiest things you'll ever see. I don't know if you guys can relate to that one, but those chickens are picky. And, yeah. The feed, they're picky on the feed. If you slightly change up the feed, it'll take a little bit of getting used to for the chickens, but eventually they will get used to it, and they will suck it up. But for now, yeah, they will be a little bit annoying. And the bantams can fly way better than all. Yeah, they're really tiny ones. Yeah, the problem, we find hundreds of eggs. I don't think I found that many eggs. I think I found like 17 or 18 last week hidden in the bush. And we removed those eggs, and the chicken that was sitting on those eggs was not too happy. So we removed the chicken from those eggs, and then and those eggs were destroyed because of shifting temperatures. It's supposed to frost. We're supposed to get our first significant frost tonight, supposedly. It's supposed to be like 34 tonight. So there's a lot of eggs out there that are going to get destroyed tonight because the chickens are laying in the most inconvenient locations possible. And that's all because they're rummaging around for those treats. They want to find those treats, so they keep on looking and looking, and they go to the worst places to find them. Like, you could just, like, you know, run up to the door, make some loud sounds, and I'll probably give you some goldfish to bribe you back into the yard. But instead, you put yourself up for a lot of traps, which is what the chickens just love doing, and it's just so annoying when you just find a chicken randomly. And they don't like making a lot of sound early in the morning. The only chicken that'll make sound when I'm trying to I'm trying to get on the bus at like 5:30 a.m. I don't want like any loud sounds. I'm just waking up. I already went out there, checked on the chickens, made sure everyone was there for the second time. Then I'm like stand there waiting for the bus to pull up and trying my absolute best to stay awake so that way I won't miss it. And then my rooster has to make sure I'm awake. He has to test me in the morning, and it shatters my ears, I swear. Like, I don't know if he's asking for treats or if he's just like asking for some, or if he's asking the light to be turned off, just because I want the light on in the front yard. So that way I don't have to that way I actually can see when it's like pitch black out and I'm trying to get on that bus in the morning. It's already a bad start to the day when you have to ride that thing that like shakes violently every time you hit a slight pothole. Yeah. It's so annoying. So that just adds more to my morning pain when my rooster starts crowing. We encounter many chickens. There's very few snakes that live up here. There's only a couple snakes I've ever seen. The most common one here are the garter snakes. They're very small, so no big deal. The next ones I'll see occasionally are the ribbon snakes. Those can be like green ribbons or black or red ribbons on their back. And then I've seen one time, and I mean one time only, I saw a rattlesnake. And typically when you see one, there's probably more somewhere else, just hiding, waiting for the best moment to strike. I saw it from a distance, which is good. We also have copperheads. I think I've seen a couple of those every now and then, but very infrequently. We don't have anything that'll like eat the chicken eggs, because I know down in the south portion of the country, in the south portion here, there's a lot of snakes, and they'll try to eat the chicken eggs. They'll take the chicken treats. That's what we have over here. Raccoons will do that too. It's mainly snakes, though. I know in other countries they have it much worse. Those snakes will actually eat full-grown chickens. For the most part, the worst thing they could do here is eat the chicken eggs, take the treats, maybe a day-old chick. That's really the worst they could possibly do. But I'd definitely watch out for snakes, and if you see them, that's what portable chicken coop. Yeah. Yeah, that rattlesnake, it didn't rattle, which is good. I don't want any rattlesnakes here. They suck. The Eastern, I don't know if they're called Eastern Diamondback or something like that, but they still suck regardless. We're going on Outdoors Gang. Welcome into the chat. Although, other than that, though, I don't really want any rattlesnakes here, any of that sort of stuff. They take the chicken treats. They're very deadly. Just don't screw around with them. They're the things like screw around and find out. So, yeah. Next time you encounter a rattlesnake in the wild, don't play with it. It's not a toy. It'll take you and probably your chickens with it as well. So that's my little tip for snakes. I might release a video talking about snakes and chickens in the future, but for now, we're going to stick to talking about like coyotes, raccoons, and all that whatnot, because they're a bigger threat. Other than that, though, the chicken treats, they'll take those a lot. They'll take the chickens, and they kind of do suck. Like, really suck. They're everywhere in the spring. At least they're not mainly harmful here. Like, I've seen like 2 or 3 ones that could be pretty deadly. That's it. No very bad ones, so I think we're fine here. So I would definitely recommend keeping your guard up for snakes, as they can attack the chickens, but for the most part, it'll be the chickens attacking the snakes. Which leads me to my next point. Making sure your chickens aren't getting into what they shouldn't be getting into. My chickens love getting into a lot of things that they shouldn't be. That they know they shouldn't be getting into, but they still get into it for the sake of getting into it. Like, those chickens will sometimes get into things thinking they're good treats, but they're not. Like, yeah. The Eastern Diamondback rattle. I thought that was correct. Yeah, the chickens love getting into things they know they shouldn't be getting into, but they still get into it for the sake of getting into it. Never had any issues with things like getting into the trash and all, but there are some people that say that their chickens will get into the trash, which is something you don't want, because there might be electronics and stuff like that in there. And yeah, we don't want them touching that sort of stuff. But what they mainly would get into is they'd like find like your garden, and they will make sure that they'll leave your garden a wreck. Fortunately, I've never had any issues with them escaping by the garden. I mean, yeah, they'll escape by the garden, but they don't really go into that garden, which is good, because we have some plants that they wouldn't really like in there when I try them. tomato plants, all that whatnot. I think they only really like the broccoli plants and some of that sort of stuff. And if you're gonna put them in the garden and you have green beans, what you want to do is you want to take the green beans off because they cannot have uncooked green beans. It's a little bit too hard on them. So make sure that all the green beans are like taken off the green bean plant and then let them have the rest of it. So that's my little lecture on gardens with your chickens. I talked about snakes with your chickens. Let's see, what else is on my agenda? I'm going to look over at my notes. Aha, I see what we should be doing next. We should be talking next about feed. So what is your main company? Let's put up a discussion banner here. What is the main company that you get your feed from? Not the main company. I mean the what do you use? What type of crumble do you use for your chicken egg? Not chicken egg, chicken for your chickens in general. Like personally, we just use like egg layer crumbles. What do you guys use? If you want chickens in the chat, of course, egg layer crumbles all the way. For the baby ones, we use typical baby ones. I'm pretty sure everyone else uses that, but we can talk a little bit about chicken feed. Their chicken feed should generally consist of that. Trust me, they will eat it. They just accept that they have to eat it. They don't really care that they have to eat it. They'll just accept that, yeah, this is something I have to have in my day-to-day life, unfortunately, or possibly not, unfortunately. If they're younger chickens and you try hand feeding it to them, they'll find it because they're young and curious little chickens. They're still developing. But once they get older, they get more picky, which is why they won't really like eating this sort of stuff in front of you. So try to experiment with that sort of stuff on an early on standpoint. And in terms of switching from egg layer crumble from what's it called? In terms of switching from the baby pellets over to the egg layer crumbles, I want to say around 16 to 20 weeks old is when you're going to start doing that. You don't want to do it too late because these egg layer crumbles will help them get into laying eggs a little bit. And if you keep the baby crumbles, I don't know what's going to really happen. Like maybe there could be a hindering on the amount of eggs I get, but that's really all I could possibly think of. So yeah, the egg layer crumble matters a whole lot when it comes down to all that whatnot. So make sure that yours are still young. So they're on the chick starter is what we'd be given to the baby chickens, and then the egg layer crumbles are the ones we'd be given to the main chickens that are outside. Those are the main feed is typically something you can find at like Tractor Supply or like any like local chicken farm dealer that will like deal that sort of stuff out. I don't remember what it was like called. I think it was like Dumo or something like that. I'm pretty sure that's wrong though. That's where like most people around here would get their chicken feed from. That's what now typically I replace the chicken feed there every other day, or if it rains, I replace it every single time it gets a little bit wet. If the chicken feed gets a little bit wet, you'd likely want to replace it so it doesn't develop mold. And yeah, I typically replace it every other day because a dozen chickens will go through that, like a full basket of, not like a full tray of chicken feed in about 2 days. So make sure you check the size. Obviously, some of them they'll go through in half a day. Some of them they'll take like 2 or 3 days to go through. I'd recommend 2 days be the maximum that you let your chickens not like have that one set of feed for, because it could develop mold. It could develop some other things in it. So replace it every now and then, and they will be just fine. Now you might think they're not eating it, but they are. They are having the chicken crumbles. They just don't want to have it in front of you because they think that every single time you go past their yard that you're going to give them those treats, not egg layer crumbles. And yeah, sometimes when I'm at like 5:30, I'll give them those egg layer crumbles, and one chicken, that one chicken's Fluffball, will come out of the coop and see what's going on and then go right back into the coop. I'm actually surprised that the automatic coop door sometimes opens at like 5:30, but it will, depending on the day. And yeah, Fluffball is typically the first out, followed up by some more. Other than that, but yeah, the chickens, they'll typically go out there and check and see what you're putting out there for them, and that's pretty much all they'll do really like that early in the morning. But past that point, then that's when they're gonna start to go a little bit crazy with like begging you for treats. They'll go up to your door sometimes. They'll start making sounds. They'll do a lot of things for some treats. I remember my rooster Waldo back in 2022 when he was still alive. He had a little gang of chickens pulling up to the door, like literally every day as part of the little orientation thing. Like they'll have like around like they'll do that for around like I don't know like they'll do that like 4 to 6 times a week for like up to 30 minutes. They'll just stand there at the porch, and it's irresistible to give them at least a little bit of treats, some goldfish, some worms, some lettuce, all that whatnot. I throw that out there, and yeah, it doesn't make too much of a mess because they'll find everything that they need in there. So that's all that I got on chicken feed. I'm going to go a little bit on a side tangent. We're going to stop talking about treats and feed, and we're going to start talking about chickens in general. Start talking. Last time I attempted one of these streams, I did healthcare. So, do you have someone you can go to if your chickens are sick or ill or injured? Do you have like I know you should like consult with a veterinarian, but like, would your veterinarian be fine with you bringing in a chicken if you have to? I know mine would, and the chickens will be. And I know that like I could trust the veterinarians in bringing the chickens in and caring for them, but like, would any veterinarians actually accept chickens? Probably. As long as you go to like the right person that knows what they're doing on the chickens, most people would accept that. So do you have someone you can go to if your chickens are like sick or they're injured? Like some injuries might be just minor. Like if you notice they're like limping, and I'll monitor them, and if it looks like it's a very serious injury, then you might want to sort of like transport them into like care. I'm just picking up where I left off on the last one of these streams. So that's really all I'd recommend doing in terms of caring for them if they're injured. If they're sick, separate them immediately. And maybe if they're showing signs of bird flu, yeah. If they're showing signs of bird flu, I think you may or may not be screwed, and then you're going to need to consult with the locals, and you won't have some chickens after that, unfortunately. I don't know what happens after that matter, but like, I know bird flu is pretty serious, so you don't want to. I'd definitely avoid walking in water and then walking with those same boots into the chicken yard. That is one thing I'd 100% of the time avoid, because the chickens, because sometimes you do track in some diseases that the water has absorbed by other birds. So, and ducks can also transmit it asymptomatically is the word I was trying to say. Asymptomatically, and they won't show any signs of it, so they'll transmit it right to your chickens, and that may be an issue for the chickens. So make sure that you know what you're doing with your chickens for that sort of stuff, as far as that goes. Now, typically, if your chicken is limping, first, as I said, monitor it carefully. Maybe write a little bit of a log down. Sometimes I'll do a little bit of a log on the chickens to make sure when they're limping. It's like my chicken Summer was once limping a little bit, and she was shivering, and I was like, oh no, here we go again. Because I don't know if you remember, I told about it, but like when the chickens were fighting for the pecking order, BCT crashed into Mrs. Peepers, and it caused a little bit of an injury with Mrs. Peepers. I put a little injury in quotations because it was a pretty serious injury that if she was in the wild, she would not have been able to just walk it off. But it's quite easy to survive if you have a veterinarian you can consult with that sort of stuff. So, yeah, you want to make sure that like if you're seeing like a chicken shivering and limping, they're typically cold, especially if it's like temperature swinging and all that. Make sure they can get really sore sometimes. Maybe they got into a little bit of pecking order dispute. Maybe they're trying to, today's gonna be my lucky day. Today I'm gonna rise up against the odds and fight for the top number 1 spot on the pecking order. And then they try, and then they get into a fight, and they stay in the exact same location, and with a little bit of a bruise or an injury. So if you notice limping, monitor it. And if they're still limping after 3 to 6 days, then separate them, put them in like a brooder, turn on the heat lamp and all, and make sure they're safe and quiet and all that whatnot in there, and you should be just fine proceeding that point. If they're still in a very horrible shape after like another 1 to 3 days, that's when I recommend consulting with like a veterinarian. They'll get you all sorted on that sort of stuff. They'll do stuff like x-rays and, putting them in a splint and all that whatnot, unless you know how to do that stuff all by yourself. Other than that, it can be a little bit costly. So make sure you're spending your money wisely on chicken healthcare. And if you don't know a lot about like illnesses on chickens, if it's the bird flu, as I was saying earlier, it's something you can't really treat. There's a lot of other illnesses like being egg bound, which is probably the most common thing, and the most common symptom is the chicken just doesn't look like they're trying to lay an egg, but they're not. And then that could possibly lead to egg yolk peritonitis, which is something again I won't probably get into. It is a very deadly disease with survival rate of fairly low. Like I think it's like 30% is like the survival rate for like egg yolk peritonitis. For egg bound, that number is probably closer to 60%. And then for having bumblefoot, that is a treatment that can be treated so easily. You probably already have all the treatments like Epsom salt, soak that every day, and then like bandage it up. Make sure the chicken's separate from the flock, and the bumblefoot will gradually decrease and all that whatnot. If you don't catch it in time, it will get to the bone and it will be fatal. But as long as you treat the bumblefoot early, the survival rate can be 85% or higher. So it's always looking at the good side when you're trying to care for your chickens. Always look at the good side, and always hope for the best when you're talking about chicken healthcare, because there's a lot of things like the bird flu's been going around a lot recently, and that can make your heart pound, especially if it's in a local area. So yeah, like I said, yeah, that's the sort of stuff you don't want to be messing with. Is like all these diseases that chickens can transmit, and make sure that you know what you're feeding to your chickens, obviously. That sort of carries back into my original point. I was actually going to cover this in the last chicken chat I ever attempted, which is March of this year, which is episode 3. We talked about healthcare and getting into consultation with people that can help out your chickens if necessary. That one I had to end early due to internet connectivity issues, as I had a lot of internet connectivity issues back then. But besides that point, though, I was starting to get into that sort of stuff. And right at the end, on my notes for that and my little agenda, I was going to transfer into talking about this. So we're just talking about chicken treats, healthcare, and like building the best possible chicken today. The chicken treats, make sure they're being fed constantly if you want a good amount of eggs, because their feed can help really influence the amount of eggs that they're laying, the amount of the amount of eggs that they're laying can sometimes be influenced by the feed that you're giving them, by the amount of water they're having. Always check the water, or that's another thing that you should be constantly doing, is making sure that they have the waters all filled up daily. Change that about every day unless it's filled by the end of the first day. If it's not filled, then I'd recommend cleaning it out. I'd always clean it out just for the sake of making sure it's cleaned and all that whatnot. And then past that point, then all you got to do is refill it up and then bring it out to the chickens for the next day. I do that around 5 in the morning, and then I bring that out to the chickens, and then there they are, and waiting for the treats in the morning, which will come to them at around 9:30-ish. That is typically when the treats shall arrive for the pet flock. And then once the chickens realize that they're not getting treats at that exact time, they'll start to become spoiled brats. I'll say that. So always make sure you have a constant time set for the chickens and the time you're giving them treats and all that whatnot. So that way they don't become spoiled and all that whatnot. Obviously, you should spoil your chickens a little bit, but don't raise them spoiled. You don't want their lifestyle to be spoiled, because they can find some of the food themselves. You just gotta provide a little bit of it for them, so that way they at least feel a little valued, and that way they could build a trustworthy relationship with the chickens. I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's not a big deal if you don't have a trustworthy relationship with your chickens. Yeah, it is a big deal. I'd say personally. For me personally, I would love for a lot more people to get out there, start giving their chickens more treats, start to build a relationship with that chicken, because you might not realize it, but yeah, you can actually be I wouldn't really call it being friends with the chicken, although it really is. You build a trustworthy bond with the chicken, and that can help influence other things in the future. If something gets to your chickens and they're scared to come out, the morning we had the fox attack and the pet flock, the reason why we got everyone back in 30 minutes is because they know who we are, and they know that we're not here to hurt them and all. So that is why being like cool with your chickens is pretty cool. So make sure you're cool with your chickens. Obviously, that's what I was just talking about. So that way, like if an incident like that were to pop up, you would lose significantly less chickens because you couldn't find them in time. That is something I love doing. It's something that you would enjoy. Just spend like 15 minutes a day hanging out in the chicken yard. So that way they get used to your appearance every now and then in the yard, and then give them some treats. Learn some hand feeding. That is one thing I would love doing with the chickens is hand feeding. Hand feeding is a great mechanism for taming your chickens. If you're trying to hand feed them, just get some treats, and if they're younger chickens, maybe some like chicken egg layer crumble and all that whatnot. Put that in your hand. Walk out to the chicken yard, or you could do that in the chicken yard, and then make sure your hand and palm is flat, so that way the chickens can see it. At first, especially with the younger chickens, you might notice no one comes there, but then you're gonna see that one curious, like I don't know, Easter egg or something like that come over, and then gonna start pecking at it, and then eventually that leads to another chicken coming over, then another chicken coming over, and eventually got all the chickens over having a little bit of a function over there. Yeah, those chickens, they will eventually lead their way out to. Eventually, all the chickens will find their way over to that little function, and you'll have a lot of chickens. And if you do that consistently, then those chickens might start building a relationship with you. They will start to trust you. You can now pick them up sometimes, and then you can begin to pet them without them running away. Sometimes the chicken just randomly decides overnight, well, you know what, I'm just gonna let all the people around me just pet the chicken all the whatnot. That was Puff for like a month and a half. Now she's not nearly as friendly because after we went on that 1 week vacation, she sort of got used to the caretaker, and then after that, it wasn't really the same after that. Sometimes chickens will at first appear friendly, but in reality, they're not that friendly. And sometimes if you notice the chicken being over friendly, sometimes that could possibly mean they're a rooster, but like 98% of the time, that has nothing to do with it. That just typically means that you're just raising a happy and healthy chicken. They're trustworthy in you, and they put in their trust in you to keep them alive. Because that's what all chickens want. They want to be kept alive for the longest possible time. They want to be out of pain, of course. So make sure that your chickens are as safe as possible in that sort of scenario. Yeah, that's why, as I was just saying, building a trustworthy relationship with your chickens is one of the greatest things you can do. Now, unfortunately, I don't have any more on my little notes I made today. Hopefully I can do Trivia Tuesday tomorrow. We're like 53 minutes into the stream. I just want to take the last 7 minutes of the stream to just talk about really whatever chicken topic we can come up with, and then we take the last 3 minutes for feedback and all that whatnot. As I was saying, you should expect these streams a little bit more often. I'm starting to get back into the swing of things here. I'm starting to learn how to do better streams now, and with the new features that are coming to StreamYard recently, it's really helped a little bit with that sort of stuff. So yeah, is there any chicken topics that I haven't quite yet covered in the stream, or covered earlier on but you forgot that happened? What are those topics that you want me to cover for the last 6 minutes of the chat, 6.5 minutes, whatever? I don't know. For me personally, I would want to. The next chicken chat will happen on November 6th. Next week, I really want to get on another gardener. I haven't quite yet decided who I wanted to get on quite yet. It'll be a surprise. You'll randomly see the video on your feed next week. But then the next chicken chat, I kind of want to divert into talking more about chickens and relationships with humans and other poultry that you introduce in the yard. So I just figured I'd talk about introducing new chickens just a little bit really quickly. If you're introducing a new chicken to the yard, sometimes the chickens will say, all right, cool, you can come in now, I don't care. Others will say, I'm higher up in the pecking order than you, even if they were already higher up in the pecking order in their previous location, or they're just brand new chickens. There will be some fighting for a day or two, but it's typically not huge fighting. It's typically nothing. My pet flock, if I were to introduce 12 new chickens, they wouldn't really care too much. Unless they started fighting, then they'd probably start beginning to care. Unless it's a rooster that's been introduced with them, then the chickens probably won't really care, to be honest. If I'm being real with you with that one, chickens could care completely less about that sort of stuff. So, yeah, they could. My pet flock could really care less about new chickens being introduced. Like when we introduced the 5 farm flock chickens, Chicka, Pita, all that whatnot. Those chickens, the farm flock chickens. They were confused the first day, but then after that, they got used to being in that yard. And the pet flock chickens, I think I only saw one fight unfold, and that was with a farm flock chicken and another farm flock chicken. So those fights out there are pretty common. The pet flock didn't really want to fight. They're old chickens. They don't want to have to go down fighting and all that whatnot. So introducing new chickens can be a hassle sometimes, depending on the type of chickens that you have. It's not a breed thing. It's just something that chickens enjoy doing. They love throwing hands if they need to, and they will. Oh, they will. And sometimes they get injured from that. My Rooster Falcon did get injured a little bit before he moved into the pet flock back in mid 2021. He was getting ransacked by those chickens. I don't know if it was because they knew he was a rooster or because he was trying so hard to fit in and really wasn't. He was just not in the greatest shape. And then we moved him out to the pet flock, and he was just shy until he started crowing. And then he realized the power that he had over the chickens, and then he started abusing that power. And now we have probably one of, if not the worst roosters you could possibly ever ask for, because roosters love abusing their powers. I think next chat we'll talk a little bit about roosters as well. We're in the last 3 minutes of the stream, so for these next 3 minutes, all feedback for these types of streams is welcomed into the chat. Everyone is allowed to give and voice their opinions as to what I could possibly end up improving. So the experience that you have on my next live could be better than the one you had today. Even if today was the best experience you've ever had on one of my lives, trust me, you'll have a better experience on the next one. If you give me some suggestions, that way I know to mix up my lives a little bit. Maybe doing some more lives could help. Yeah, that is one thing I'm doing already. That's one thing I'm already getting into, is doing more lives for a mix of reasons, because I kind of want to get into doing these longer things again, for lives and all that whatnot. Anyways, last 2 minutes of the stream, just quick announcements, and there's really nothing else to say other than Chicken Pumpkin Carving Challenge submissions open tomorrow and will continue until November 3rd. The submission video will come out sometime between the 6th and the 10th. That is my best guess for that sort of stuff. So now that that's out of the way, we got the Chicken Pumpkin Carving Challenge coming up. We have more lives. Trivia Tuesday, that is a possibility. Thursday night live discussion, there's about an 85% chance that goes on versus the 60% chance that we actually have Trivia Tuesday tomorrow night. Thursday night live discussion will likely happen, because Thursday night, I don't have any exams, I don't have any tests. Friday, I might do a pop-up if I have time. Saturday will always be that miscellaneous day where I can go live or I couldn't go live. Then Sunday, I'll try doing every other week Sunday streams again like I did back last October. I had a lot of fun doing those lives. I kind of miss doing them. So that's why I'm getting right back into the swing of things. So I hope you enjoyed the live while it lasted. We are down to 1 minute left on the panel. All my lives should be around an hour. If I do a special stream, maybe I might squeeze 2 hours, but if it's just me talking, it's bound to be an hour. If I'm with someone else, it could be up to 2, maybe even 3, sometimes 4 hours. So yeah, we are in the last 30 seconds of the stream, everyone. So yeah, thank you for stopping in, everyone. Take care, everyone. We have 28 seconds left for the stream, so I hope everyone had a great time doing this live. I really want to do one again tomorrow, but then again, I have my chemistry test, and I really don't want to take it, but I have to take it. Chemistry grade is not too hot right now, so it could improve some things in terms of the academical aspect. So take care, everyone. We'll count down the last 5 seconds of stream. 3, 2, 1, goodbye.